Hey, Enchilada Nation, what kind of lessons could you learn if you got a former Navy SEAL and a former NFL player in the same conversation? I will tell you, this week's episode of The Whole Enchilada is fire. We talk about lessons around pursuing excellence, hard work, leadership, staying the course, how to serve people. It is an incredible conversation with my good friend Dan Cerrillo and Derek Price. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll see you there. Go find us at thewholeenchilada.biz or on your favorite podcast player.
Welcome to The Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go.
Hey, Enchilada Nation, I am incredibly excited about our episode today. I have not one, but two incredible guests on with me. Guys, this morning I was actually thinking a little bit about how do I introduce these guys? Like, how do you introduce icons? And the only way I can describe it to our listeners is this, is, you know, when you were growing up and there were those couple macho guys that you looked up to, you're like, man, I want to be like that guy. And then those guys, that macho guy also looked up to somebody. That's these guys. This is like the macho guys' mentors, the guys they look up to, at least from my perspective. Derek, I met Derek Price, man, it's been 11 years ago, probably.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Long time ago. I went to a CrossFit gym. I didn't know Derek owned it at the time, but I saw this beast of a man working out. And I'm like, I'm going to keep up with that guy. And that only lasted for about 30 seconds. Then several years later, through Derek, I got introduced to Dan at Spartan 7 SEAL Adventure event, which was incredible, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But guys, give me just a quick background bio on both of you guys before we jump into our conversation. Let's start with Dan, since he was actually on time for the call today, and then we'll move into Derek in a second. Dan, you're up.
Yeah, Dan Cerrillo. I served just over a decade in the SEAL teams. Would have done 30 if they would have let me. I got blown up overseas and got medically retired, and we went from there. Got into work. I worked for the government for a little bit. And then got hired by Paul Allen, who's the co-founder of Microsoft, to build and start his executive protection team. Was a member there for 6 years. During that time, I got into business, my first foray, decided to open CrossFit gyms. I always wanted to train kids. I really had no desire to train adults. And I built a really big CrossFit kids program. We had an adult program, ended up having one of the biggest gyms in the country. Had about 700 clients, went through that whole realm, exited from there, and went to go work for a co-founder of Google as a special projects guy. So he wanted to be James Bond, jump out of planes, do all kinds of cool shit. I did that, was also part of the security team, the global security team. So we did all the travel, and then ended up helping start a humanitarian team. And that humanitarian team went from 5 guys to well over 150. Disaster aid response and humanitarian team responding to disasters all over the world, combined of 3 elements: SEALs, special operations guys, Harvard Humanitarian and Stanford Medicine. I was the director of recruiting, and I basically built the team from 5 to what it was to when I left. Got into veteran therapy while I was there, treating myself first. My wife was struggling with cancer, so I ended up becoming a very, very bad alcoholic for quite some time. Right. And then got into veteran therapy. And next thing I knew, I got recruited to come to American Addiction Centers, where I'm now the chief of staff, and got many departments that I'm in charge of. We're about close to about 3,000 employees. When I came to the company was struggling very badly, so I was helped do the restructuring. People say that I'm a get shit done guy, and that's what the CEO of the company hired me to do, was to make sure initiatives got done and taken place. We've gone from about a $250 million company to getting close to $1 billion, restructured the entire company, very, very profitable. Along that road, I decided I've dragged Derek everywhere I went. And so I called Derek, and Derek's one of the CEOs of one of the hospitals that we own. And I'm a father of 3 wonderful, amazing, spectacular children, huge athletes, amazing wife. And I coach football at Lipscomb Academy with Trent Dilfer. I'm the head coach of the freshman team. That's me in a nutshell.
I love that. I love that. SEAL, the serial entrepreneur, which is, again, the first time we connected, I was like, man, this is a guy I got to know at a higher level. I love that. And dragging Derek's 250 pound frame anywhere is not easy. Yeah. Derek, give our listeners a quick background.
I think it makes perfect sense to have Danny go first. Danny is my mentor. I'm fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of great people in my life, but Danny has been for the past, I don't know, Dan, 15 plus years now, has been somebody that I look up to. His business acumen is great. The fact that he was a SEAL is great, and those are cool, but those are labels. And what I really look to Dan for, and hopefully it gets expressed in this podcast, and what you don't see behind that thick candy shell of his, is he's the biggest loving teddy bear that will give you anything on planet Earth to make your life better, even at the sacrifice of his own. So when I find people like that in my life, man, it's hard for them to shake me loose, because I gravitate towards those types of human beings, and I aspire to become more like that. So, Dan, I know this podcast is us talking to Marcus, but again, thank you to you for being that mentor to me in my life. My quick backstory, Derek Price. I grew up, my father passed away at a very early age. I was the oldest boy in the house. So I was the third grader with a paper route trying to make ends meet for my school teacher mom and my brothers to, put bread and milk on the table. Kind of grew up a little bit hard, but you don't know what you don't know. And I had a great childhood, and I look back and I love every minute of it. But, thinking about some of the sentences that came out of my mouth young, like, "Hey mom, it's too cold in here." And she's like, "Well, do you want heat or a Christmas present?" So we live in a different world now, but, and I don't eat tortillas with butter and sugar for breakfast every morning. I think that's a staple. So we've changed a little bit. Early on, I knew that I wanted to pursue excellence in life. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't have a lot of male mentorship growing up. But I found athletics, and it came easy to me. And I found that hard work really set me ahead. Then I discovered the whole, hey, if you're really good at sports and you have good grades and you're good, moral character, you can get this thing called a scholarship. So I ended up going on playing college football and earning my honors there, and ended my career in college at the University of Iowa under Hayden Fry, at which time football was kind of a means to an end for me, Marcus. And it's weird for people to understand that. Like, I love the game, but more than the game is I love the people, right? I love the locker room. That was my jam. I loved to be around people that were like-minded and that were single vision driven. And so when the locker room ended, I didn't really need to pursue football. And it was actually Chuck Long, runner-up in Heisman, to Bo Jackson, called me on the phone and said, "Hey man, you've got to come run for these NFL teams. I know you skipped the combine. I know you weren't looking to do anything, but you'll regret it." And it was one of the greatest decisions I ever made, was after graduating college, to go back and say, okay, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And, I got picked up by Detroit Lions, and was able to go play in the NFL. And as a rookie, I got on the field pretty much every game, did my piece. It's hard to get the ball when Barry Sanders and Herman Moore and Brett Perryman are on the field. I mean, I asked for it, but they reminded me, you're not Barry Sanders, Herman Moore, or Brett Perryman, so you're lucky to be here, kid. Shut up, right? So I was a lucky to be there guy in the NFL, man. I think there's 10,000 guys that could have taken my place. I was right place, right time type of guy. And all was going well, and running down on a kickoff and broke my neck. So I didn't know it was a broke neck, so all the pain was in my shoulder. Went to the trainers, they did what they do back then, which we won't talk about now. Kept me on the field, then got through the rest of the season. And then when I came back for the second year, they realized that my left arm had gone from 19 inches down to about, 11, because all the nerves had been crushed and whatever. And I tried to hide it, because back then you can't make the club if you're sitting in the tub, and that was my dream, was to play. NFL career ends. I get the opportunity to stay on, write out my contract for the next couple of years on the sidelines. That's not who I am. So I said thank you to the coach, moved on, went to chiropractic school, did a good job there, came out, opened up clinics, got into, very similar to Dan's path, going from SEAL to serial entrepreneur. Followed a very similar path, opened up a multitude of clinics, vertically integrated around the entire musculoskeletal model, billing companies, orthopedic surgery centers, everything. And an offshoot, and where we met, Marcus, was I had started collecting athletes and just neighbors in my garage. And we started getting where 30, 40 people were showing up every day. And I just didn't want to pay that $200 HOA fine I got every week. So we just went and opened up a gym. And, the beauty of the gym back in the day, Marcus, this is something you'll recall, was we were just in there to do hard work, right? We were in there to coach, but we were there to do hard work. And it was a place where, like, my bros could hang out and we could all just bang iron and really get after it. And the program that we did was not mainstream. We remember like the fun runs. What's today's workout? I don't know. We're just going to take off outside. Whatever gets in our way, we're going to knock it out. So
just start moving. Yeah.
Start moving. Right. And, Marcus, I don't know if you want to get into a story of your Murph that you did with us and your fountain dive. But anyway, long story short, I go from there to really getting involved in leadership and the pursuit of how do I become a better leader, right? Because the men that I was looking up to possessed that quality. And it was something that I yearned for. And that's really what attracted me to Dan. First time I met Dan was at an organization called SEALFIT. And I was going through as a student. He was a master instructor. And I tried to warm up to the guy, and it took me 2 years. And Dan will tell you the story, but he thought I was just a straight up douchebag for 2 years. Oh, this guy's got an angle. Oh, he's trying to use me for my trident, whatever it was. And all I wanted to do was just be his friend, man. So, eventually, I just wouldn't go away. I was persistent, and he was like, well, I guess I'm either gonna be friends with this guy or be annoyed the rest of my life. So we became lifelong friends from there. And there was an opportunity that Dan presented to me, come up and do some leadership for one of the largest substance abuse mental health hospitals in the world. So we did, and I took that opportunity. And mostly because it was a blind spot to me. I understand musculoskeletal. I understand athletic, I understand the chiro PT, but I had no idea what substance abuse and mental health was. So I enjoyed diving into that. And to this day, I currently, function as the CEO of Desert Hope Treatment Facility in Las Vegas. The other things about me is I've done Ironman a bunch of times. I'm a longtime jiu-jitsu practitioner. I'm fortunate enough to train in Spartan 7 as one of the cadre there. But, my crowning pinnacle achievements in life is my wife, Heather. She's my foundation. She's my rock. We've been together on a blind date at a high school since '91. And we've spawned 3 beautiful daughters. I have the youngest female firefighter in the history of Arizona is my oldest daughter. My middle daughter is playing water polo on a college scholarship. And my younger one just burns money in competitive dance. And I think we can all 3 of us can kind of laugh and joke about that. But if you got a daughter in dance, you probably won't listen to this whole podcast because you got to get back to work and earn those dollars. So
yeah,
that's kind of who I am, a little bit where I'm coming from. And Marcus, I appreciate the kind words that you say, but it's mutual, man. I look to you and you're always going above and beyond to serve everybody else around you. And again, that's what attracts me to you. And thank you for being that person.
Yeah, no, thank you. I honestly, I think that's what is the commonality between all 3 of us, because I've watched you guys in your element over time, and I know you see it, even though you don't necessarily acknowledge it this way. But you both have a group of people around you that are watching everything you do, wanting to be like you, and I respect that at a high level. I mean, Derek, was funny. The first time I saw you come into the gym for a normal class, I was sitting there doing. I'm like, who's this guy? And after we did a workout together, I remember you being like, all right, you can come to the Cool Guys Club. We meet before the gym opens. Yeah. And that's when I started coming to your like special workouts.
We do the workout before the workout starts.
You do the workout before the workout starts.
Right.
And you're the only human being in the world that's ever kidnapped me out of my own bed
at
night and dragged me out to put me through an all-night workout in preparation for the Kokoro camp.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So thank you guys again for sharing some of your time with us today and your background. I want to stay focused for a minute on our conversation around this idea. Derek, you mentioned you found this inherent need inside of you to pursue excellence at a young age. And if you look at it from the public perception, both in the SEAL teams for Dan, the NFL, like for most people, they look at that as that is like the pinnacle. That is the height of all teams on both sides of the spectrum. And I imagine that doesn't happen by chance. I want to understand a little bit more, like maybe some defining moments in either of your lives when that moment clicked for you of like, hey, there's something different going on in my head as opposed to the people around me of my ability or desire to achieve at a high level. Any thoughts around that?
Yeah. The defining moment for me, I think, was probably my sophomore year of high school. I was playing for a team called Escambia Gators. It's where Emmett Smith played. I was playing with his little brothers. He had just graduated, and very, very high level football team. Like they didn't screw around. They ran like a professional football program. And I came into spring ball. nothing special. I made JV, and I was like, okay, I'm a JV player. At that time they only suited 60 players, and I wasn't one of those picked at a spring ball. And we got into fall ball, and I think I just was kind of pissed off. And so every time, JV and varsity work out together. And so during conditioning, I would make it a point to make everybody look bad. All right. I just was like, okay, give them a couple fingers, and like kind of give the coaches some fingers, and like, you didn't choose me. So during conditioning, I made it a point to be the conditioned person. I made it, in football, as Derek will tell you, a lot of coaches look at players with their shirts off and go, ooh, right? Ooh. And I wasn't that guy. I've never been that guy. I didn't take my shirt off and nobody, ooh. Well, during buds I did. I looked really good for about 7 months. But it was that sophomore year, and the next thing you know, I got moved up. It was about 3 games in the season. I got moved up to varsity as a special teams guy. And I just said to myself, I'm like, I refuse to go backward. My junior year, I was really competing to try to go to the Naval Academy. I was doing everything I could educationally, etc. I applied. I thought that I was a shoe-in to get on the football, go there to play football, a shoe-in to get in there, and I got denied. I didn't understand the process. They actually accepted me, but to prep school. So I was supposed to go to prep school for a year, which was, now I look at it totally legitimate, because I was an average math guy, and the Naval Academy is an engineering school. But I took that as just a big slap in the face. I became very anti-military, just kind of a big, 2 fingers to, you don't want me, then I don't want you. And my senior year, it was just a big attitude that I need to go prove that I'm an NFL football player, right? And I just started trying to ball as hard as I could, using my conditioning to another level. And as I got through the season, crushing it, but the offers didn't come. Right. And so then I go on my official visit. I got invited to go to Florida on my official visit. I walk in, I'm all, I'm hyped up. I'm like, hey, I'm one of the linebackers they chose to come here. I walk in, and Galen Hall looks at me, and he's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Dan Cerrillo. You asked me to come here. He's like, I ain't got no room for no 5'6" linebacker. And I literally sat there, walked out the door, cried. My stepdad drove me home, and that was the dream. That was the most crushing defeat of my life. And I probably took another year of just walking around with a chip on my shoulder, pissed off the world. I went to go play at a really small school, lost every single game, hated every minute of it, terrible coaching, terrible teammates. Guys didn't come to practice, guys didn't go to, it just sucked. And I was at a party and, big fight happens. We just lost a game, of course. So now we're at Halloween night. Big, party ended up, big, huge fight happens. I'm out there, throwing dukes with some gangbangers. And yeah, man, it got ugly. And it was funny, is the night before that, my girlfriend had taken me to see the movie Navy SEALs. And so a guy tried to hit me in the face with an axe. He actually caught me right across the eye. Barely missed me, just barely touched me, My buddy JC Cope, who he probably listened to this, he probably saved me from going to jail for murder, because the guy missed me. And at that time I was about 205, 210 pounds, but I was jacked steel. And I put a beating on that dude pretty good. And if it wasn't JC pulling me off, I'd probably be in jail for murder. And Monday morning I was at the recruiter's office. And I just said, hey, big black guy, stitches, little gig, we're going to be a SEAL. I kind of had some drama there because, I was a smart kid. You take an ASVAB. I scored really high. They didn't want me to be a SEAL, wanted me to be a nuke. And, JC's dad got me on my contract. And once I got that contract, brother, it was like, there was nothing. There was no gray. There was no white. It was black. There was no drinking. There was no girls. There was nothing. I mean, I literally totally put myself in prison, and I'm like, I'm going to be a SEAL. And I mean, I just freaking, it was that I read every book. I kind of have a hard time now with guys who are like, don't write books. I'm like, shut up, dude. That's how I got here. I read every book. I mean, I ate it up, and I get up at 4 a.m. to work out. I don't know what it is today why I got up at 4 a.m. I have a job. I'm like, I don't have a job. So, and man, I did it, and I was an original. I went to Bloods Class 194, 174 guys started, 14 of us finished. And the whole way there, everybody there was a bunch of Derricks. They looked better than me. I was kind of somewhat intimidated, and I just fell back on what I was good at. And I was run fast, swim hard, and freaking do a lot of push-ups. And I treated buds like I treat a lot of things. I do not have a gray. I'm full speed ahead, 1,000 miles an hour. Gets me in trouble a lot. But once I've committed to something, it's it, man. And that's what I did. And I did that for my SEAL career. good and bad. Sometimes I was too hardcore. Sometimes I wasn't professional enough, but nobody can ever accuse me of going light,
Yeah, Derek, we shift back to you. Something that I took away from that, and I think my listeners will really resonate with, is you would think, based on where the level you're achieving now, if I asked you that question to say, hey, give me this defining moments, you would have given me, hey, I won this, I did this really well, I was the top of my class here. But if you listen back and think about what Dan talked about for the last couple of minutes, it was, hey, I wasn't picked here. Hey, I wasn't the best here. Hey, I didn't do this. And I think a lot of our listeners can resonate back on that. And how many of us, if we were told, hey, you're not the best, hey, you don't get a dress, hey, you don't get to do this, at one of those points, the majority of the world would have just been like, nope, I guess I am mediocre. Nope, I guess I am not meant to excel at a high level. But I love the term you used, the chip on the shoulder, because I use that when people ask me, like, what was it that drove you to like go from the background you did to achieving at a high level? Right or wrong, it was a chip on the shoulder of too many people telling me, hey, you're going to fail. Hey, you're not smart enough. Hey, you're flunking out of school. There was a chip on my shoulder to be like, hey, you're telling me I'm not going to make it? I'm going to show you. So I love the fact that you use that chip on the shoulder and then went all black, like, nope, nothing else matters. I'm going to show you. I appreciate your vulnerability in that answer, because I think the majority of people that look at successful people think there's a whole trail of success behind them. And I'm finding the more people I connect with and that I like that are succeeding at a high level, it's the exact opposite. It's the way they approach failure along the way and maybe not being the best, all the way to where all of a sudden they make that decision to achieve. So I love that vulnerability, Dan, and that story. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I was a lot like Derek. I didn't grow up in a good home life. My mom, she, bless her heart, rest in peace. She had a hard life, and she was dependent on men during her life, and so role models, etc. And so that was my way of saying, this is your way out. This is your way to a better life. And I owe everything I have to the SEAL teams. I owe everything that I have to failing at college football. To me, I live my life based on failure. I look at my failures as like, thank you, right? Because my failures slap me in the face all the time. They remind me that I'm human, that I'm not immortal, and they remind me of what not to do. We had that conversation before Derek got on. I'm really good at business because I know what not to do, because I've done the shit. I've completely and utterly failed 1,000 times. And I've learned that book of failure, which sits right here. I take copious notes, sits right there on my desk. I go back to that book and I go, don't do that. And by not doing that, I've been able to do the right thing. So
I love that. Derek, what about you? What about, tell me a little bit about your background, some of those defining moments of when you like realized, hey, I am committed to pursuing excellence and that hard work ethic.
Well, I would say first and foremost that if I'm going to try and pursue excellence, we should play this thing where I don't go after Dan's comments, because my comments aren't going to be as excellent.
Still, right? You'll go first from now on. You
saw the big diamond, now you're going to see the little one, right? So, Marcus, for me, if I run the tape back, I absolutely agree on the fact that in theory, it is stacking up these micro successes. And the failures that I've had are abundant, right? I've failed at everything I've ever tried, multitude of times. But it's a mind shift in saying I failed or I learned how not to do that. And therefore, if I persist, as opposed to the 10 choices, which I clearly chose the wrong one, now I only have 9 choices. So let's persist again. Okay, I failed again. Now I only have 8 choices. And by maintaining that path, I usually land where I want to. Specifically to me, I don't know that I'd ever been asked that question before, so I'm trying to reflect and listen to Dan at the same time. But I would have to say that somewhere about my junior year in high school, which is funny, I'm not copying you, Danny, even though I love you. I was doing really well at track. I was a 400-meter guy, and football was I was decent at football. I didn't even start football until my junior year of high school. Matter of fact, when I graduated high school, I only had 4 catches as a wide receiver. So trip out on that for a second, as far as like, how do you go from here to here? Do you have to be the greatest, biggest, fastest, everything? No, staying the course for me was how I got there, right? Nobody cared who I was coming out of high school in football. But in track, I was a 400-meter guy, and it came natural to me. I was thin, I was tall, and I could run the 400 very, very well. I had a neighbor, circumstance by God, by chance, by whatever, who was also a track guy. He was much older. He was about 55 at the time. He ran for NAU a long time ago. Guy's name's Gary Shires. And we were having a talk one day, and he's like, so you want to be great? And I was like, yeah, I'm out there. I'm winning. Like, haven't been beat this year. He goes, okay, well, why don't we go back down to the track after track practice and let's do a real practice? And that's kind of like, you saw it in the CrossFit gym, Marcus, where we did like workout one and then workout for the group.
Yeah.
I was just doing the group stuff, and that for my athletic ability was enough, right? And he looked at me one time, he kind of looked me in the eyes, and he was like, yeah, you don't have to, but your competition is. And that's all he had to say. And for whatever reason that sunk in, I was like, you mean my competitors are doing extra and going above and beyond to pinnacle? So we started doing that. And as a result, I had track scholarships all over the country coming out of high school to big schools. And I had, junior college football offers. I turned down the track, but I wanted to pursue football. That was my path. And some All-American awards later, I ended up at Iowa. But that's kind of what's I think one of my defining moments was back then, was realizing that even though I was succeeding at that point in time, for me to go to the next level, I had to reach outside of myself and do more, right? And I was like, well, why do I need to do more? I'm already beating everybody at my high school. I'm beating everybody at the local high schools. And he's like, yeah, you are. But your real competitors, they're training right now. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I've always kind of followed that mantra. And what I've discovered over time is I don't look at my successes and spend a lot of time with it. I'm resilient in the fact that I bring myself back down to baseline quickly, evaluate the things that went wrong, and figure out how can I do it better. And for me, football is just a chapter of my life. It doesn't define who I am. And Dan, I know I've heard him say the same thing. He was a SEAL, and he could write books, and there's movies and there's stories that he'll never tell any of us that would make him a best-selling author. But for Dan, that was a chapter in his life. It is one of the 1,000 variables that makes him the some person that he is. And for me, football is the same way. I never introduced myself as, hey, I'm Derek Price. I played in the NFL. Like, let's talk about how great I am. It's hard for people to even pull that out of me because, hell, that was 20 years ago, and that's in the past. Where are we right now, and how can I serve people today? So I have found that while I did have some natural ability, it was doing the extra that others weren't willing to do. And that those few extras that were doing some more work is I wanted to make sure I was doing a little bit more, right? And that's why, successful people translate idea into action at a high rate of speed. When I would do a little bit more and fail at something, I was faster to evaluate, plan, reorganize, and put together an action plan, and boom, I'm off and running again. While, the competitors are still reeling with the fact that something failed, and they're, oh, we're going to sit here and mope about it. I was like, that didn't work. Case in point, I'm sitting in Bobby Ross's office at Detroit Lions, and he calls me and he goes, hey, you broke your neck. You got plates and screws in there. You're a headhunter on special teams. You're a fullback on the field. You're an H-back. A, Lloyd's of London will never clear you. B, well, I'll never play you. But you have a contract and you're a good guy. Everybody loves you, so you can stay here for the next 2 years or write out your contract and just kind of entourage with the team. Which, I'm sure a lot of people would have done. And hell, it's a lot of fun to be in the NFL and travel around and do that. But at the same time, I said, well, that doesn't serve any future purpose for me other than like an ego, maybe. So I stood up, took me all of about 10 seconds. I said, well, I appreciate the opportunity, sir. But I think this is it for me. And boom, boom. And a month later, I was registered for medical school, and I was gone. And I was off and running, and people are like, man, I'd have stayed. I'd have done that. And I look at them like, well, to what end, right? Just have more people clap for you, or just to be part of the entourage? Like, that's just not my jam. It never has been. I've always been kind of a self-starter, not because I possess any kind of inherent quality, but if I didn't self-start, there was nobody jump-starting this guy over here, right? It was a void of, my mom's working 3 jobs trying to keep food on the table. And if I didn't find a way to get out and do it, it just wasn't getting done. So I think kind of growing up hard and having a lot of things that weren't open to me, that I had to kick doors open, groomed me into that path of, I'm not afraid to do something wrong. I'm not afraid to fail. And very similar to Dan, it's kind of that alpha mentality. Like when we look at perseverance, can be broken into persistence, which is patience, and tenacity, which is, the impatient, like the driving the bull in the china shop. I suffer, as Dan does, with having a tenacity to accomplish things. And sometimes I need a little bit more persistence and patience. And I think as I get older and I follow my mentors like Dan and, David Rutherford and Chris Smith and some of those other guys in my life, I'm learning to slow down and let the world come to me. And I think that just comes with being older. And hell, I'll be 50 soon, and maturity.
There's so many great lessons in the conversation so far. A couple of things that really stuck out to me, Derek, with what you're saying that I want the three of us to kind of flesh out a little bit more is this idea of these micro successes, right? If you look at any three of us right now of what we've accomplished in life, it's not, none of us hit one home run and that was it. And that's a sum of who we are. It's these micro successes that we build on and push the failures away. And if we were balancing out the number of successes we've had versus the number of failures or reattempts we've had to have, it sounds like every single one of us, the number of failures far outweighs the number of successes in the numbers, but in the weight of value, those micro successes add up to something a lot bigger. Derek, one of the things that I want to flesh out a little bit more here is this idea of the extra effort, right? And you were succeeding in your current pond, realized that you had to have this extra effort. And I think this is a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs or athletes where they feel like if they're not succeeding to the level they want to, they feel like they have to scrap everything and start all the way over. And one of the things I found, and it made me realize this when you said the extra effort, is a lot of times it's not, that extra effort doesn't necessarily mean double the amount of effort or completely changing things. A lot of things, it's minor tweaks and just putting a little bit more effort into it. And the return you get on that little bit of extra effort is significant in what makes you stand apart. Would you guys agree with that? Is it a little bit of extra effort, or is it that monster doubling down on the extra effort?
I'm gonna jump in, speak before Dan, so that when his great answer comes out, my good one still seems relevant.
Smart move.
So Marcus, let's frame that into high school level football. The difference between a good high school player and a bad high school player is 50% margin, 60% margin.
Yeah.
College, it goes down to 20% margin. The good and the bad are 20% different. By the time you get to the NFL, you're talking single digit stuff. And everybody's really, really good there. So what makes this guy all pro, what makes him the starter, is a 2 to 3% difference. And that's kind of what I've keyed in on life, is to the home run versus hitting the singles all day, is you don't have to have something that is, I'm going to go 100% harder than everybody around me. Well, hell, you're in the wrong pond if you're going 100% harder than the people around you. It means the pond that you're in is a lower level pond. When you ascend to a pond where it would be impossible to go 100% beyond them because they're doing it too, is that 2 to 3% differentiating factor is what's going to set you apart. And that's something that's worked for me for a long time. And it's a mindset that I maintain is if I'm the strongest guy in the gym, I'm in the wrong gym. If I'm the best guy on the mats, I'm in the wrong gym. If I'm the smartest guy in the circle, I'm in the wrong circle, right? When it's imperceivable differences, or I'm lower, that's where I should be, right? Because I want to always ascend and chase and move up towards other things.
I love that. Dan, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with him. And it's funny is I used to be be 100% guy, right? And I was surrounded by, for me, I got to be 100% better. And that was easy because, not in the SEAL teams. In the SEAL teams, you're never going to be, it's the NFL. It's 1% better, right? So in the SEAL teams, everybody is good except for a few guys, right? So you don't have to motivate guys. You don't have to check on people. You don't have to do those things. There are a few guys you have to do that with. And instead of doing it, you just kick them the fuck out. All right. We just kick them out. It's just plain and simple. Some of them go on to be book writers and lie about their whatever. But bottom line is everybody there is elite. Everybody there is a hard worker. What I found is when I left and started my own businesses, I found that I believed everybody should work at the capacity that I worked. And when they didn't, I would just take over and go even harder. I must do 100% of the work because they can't. And like Derek says, if you're trying to make yourself 100% better, you're not surrounded by competitors. You're surrounded by inferiors. And that's what I discovered in my CrossFit world, is that even though I believed everybody should be able to do what I did, I would say 1% of the people could, right? And that's why they worked for me and they didn't own their own gyms, right? And so it created a lot of deep misunderstandings within my own self of what success actually was. I actually believe success back there was the size of your gym, the amount of clients, and the amount of revenue made, until you face a hardship and you go, wow, that doesn't exist anymore. And therefore that is not success. And when I learned, it took me a long time to learn it. Now what I've learned is that being very cognizant of what success actually is, the whole enchilada. See, I threw that in there.
Yes.
The whole enchilada is, I always thought success was a bank account. That to me was success. Well, today I consider myself to be very successful. The security company is blowing, Spartan Center Security is crushing it. We have the who's who of clients, but we don't focus on it. We've hired really, really good people to manage their specific projects. I oversee that world. Spartan 7, for the first time ever, that coaching cadre, I will put that coaching cadre against anybody in the world. That's how great they are. And the beauty of that is each one of us believes each one of us is better than the other. I don't think I'm better than Derek. I look at Derek and go, man, I need to raise my game to get to Derek's level. I need to raise my game to get to Chris's level. That's how good the coaching staff is. And I don't know if they feel the same way, but that's how I feel. I look around the room and I'm like, whoa, I need to really raise my game up. I've always been the best shooter in the room. And then we bring Tage Gill in. I'm like, whoa, I need to raise my shooting up, right? There's a challenge. Yeah. And so that's what Derek hit on, is what I've really discovered, is that it's easy to think you're doing 100% when you're surrounded by inferior talent. It's easy to look good again when you play bad talent. Mm-hmm. And what I've decided to do is really surround myself with extremely good talent, surround myself with extremely good people who aren't just the focus of, like you and I talked about, the Bugatti. Success to me is Derek Price's family life. He's taught me more about how to be a husband than I've ever learned from anybody, right? I mean, the way he is as a husband, I have changed my, husbandry. I mean, that's a real name. I have totally changed the way I am as a husband, and it's can transform my marriage. The transformation of my marriage has transformed my business. The transformation of my business has allowed me to do things for my children that have given them the opportunity that I never had. My daughter is a professional athlete, right? And she has her own apartment, she has her own car, she's paid to go compete, she's paid to do these things, etc. But the transition to get there, most parents would have been like, whoa, because there was an expense to it. I've now had that opportunity. I look at that so much more as those micro successes of really going, I'm successful because of the people around me. And then I'm successful of how the whole enchilada is not a part of the enchilada. My family life is incredibly successful, therefore my business life is successful. And my business and family life is successful because I got rid of the bad, right? Instead of carrying it along, putting on my straps on my backpack, I have said, go away, I have no use for you. You're not doing anything for Dan. Who are the best people I can put around myself? Derek Price, the best husband I've ever seen. Chris Smith is the best leader I've ever met. Matt Bissonette, Tage, all these guys that I've surrounded myself with. I look at them, Andrew McWilliams, Stephen Ebbett. I look at these guys and I'm like, what can I take from them? Because something they have, I look at them like, whoa, man, he's smart, right? I would have never thought that way. That's what I've tried to do. And that to me is success, is being able to look in the mirror and go, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I have a lot to learn and I want to learn it from people who I think are the smartest guys in the room.
I love that. And you touched on the message of the whole enchilada, right? It is the idea of this isn't focused on just crush one area of life. It's when you focus on crushing multiple aspects of life, you'll find the lessons you learn in business make you a better dad. The lessons you learn becoming a better dad make you a better athlete. The lessons you learn becoming a great athlete make you a better at serving in your community, right? We've lost touch that who we become as humans affect how we show up in each of these areas of our lives. Derek, to your point with the ponds, one of the things that was coming in my mind with, am I in the right pond? Am I surrounded by the right people that are making me a better person? And I may be maybe in a very good pond business wise, but I might look at my spirituality pond and say, hey, you know what? I am not the strongest person in this pond. I have a lot of room to grow, where I might be looking at 1% to 2% increases on the business side. Maybe I've got to make some simple steps that actually increase me 10, 15% in spirituality, or as an athlete, or whatever that looks like. But so I think we have to go beyond just who am I circling myself around with in general, but specific to where I'm trying to grow in these different areas. Who is my sphere of influence? And I would argue that as you continue to grow, it becomes harder and harder to find that group of people. And that's why I love this last Spartan 7 adventure for several people all over the country flying together, that we're all seeking that camaraderie, seeking that next level of conversation, because it gets harder and harder to find it in your current vicinity. And to the point of the cadre at the Spartan 7 events, which we'll talk about the Spartan 7 adventure events, that's one thing that I will tell you is I had the opportunity to talk to each coach individually in a one-on-one conversation, and every coach individually was saying the exact same thing that you guys were saying, is like, hey, I'm the least worthy to be among this group of all the coaches. I get to be around Dan. I get to be around Chris. I get to be around Tej. And then I go talk to one of them and they say the exact opposite. No, I'm the least among this group. I get to be around Derek. I get to be around, right? And that was really, really awesome for me to see on an individual basis in those conversations. It shows me you guys have put together something really special there.
Yeah, and there's one thing I want to touch on too, before we change subject. It's not so much of what you're doing to surround yourself with, et cetera. What are you doing to make yourself miserable? That's the part that I've really caught on this last week. So every kind of day and week, I kind of pick up on something. And obviously, like I peruse social media. I used to be part of social media. Now I peruse it. I'm very rarely part of it. And I sit there and I look at this and I'm like, you are making yourself miserable. You're posting things that have no bearing whatsoever on happiness. All they do is piss you off, make you miserable. That's self-inflicted chaos and wounds. That I think is something that I'm so proud of myself for. Is literally, I used to be that Derek knows me as two Dans. The Dan 4 years ago was a drunk, angry, upset, PTSD, you name it, Dan had it. Every excuse to be an asshole I had. The Dan today, I literally I love life. I think life is amazing. I think nature is amazing. I think human beings are amazing. I love conversation. I just love, right? And I sit sometimes and I look at this social media stuff. I'm like, you're intentionally causing harm and chaos to yourself by posting something about whatever this person or that person or this state or this administrator or who gives a shit, man? Like, delete. If it doesn't make you happy and make you smile, don't do it. That to me has been the part of success that I have achieved, which has really defined family, business, etc., by looking at my wife now and not just saying, hey, I've been married for 22 years. Look at my wife going, my wife's alive. She's the most amazing, wonderful human being I've ever met. And she's beautiful. And holy crap, what is she doing with me? I'm thankful. And then I look at my kids and like, God, my kids are amazing. Like they just put me in awe all the time. And then I expand that to the circle and I go, holy crap, my best friend is the Arizona State champion jiu-jitsu guy, right? My best friend got inducted into the Hall of Fame for track. I look at those things, I'm like, wow, look at these people, these amazing people. What can I do? What can I do? So I think that's I'm probably on a tangent, but I just want to make sure people understand that don't inflict self-chaos and self-wounds.
Well, Dan, I'm gonna pick up on that a little bit. I think that oftentimes, Marcus, when people are maybe in their junior stages of pursuing excellence, is that there's a lot of false reality out there, right? And when you're on social media, you're just looking at people's highlight reels and et cetera. But even in real world, like when you get around some of those athletes, they're God touched, and there's a difference. There is a percentage of those people that they don't have to do what I would have to do the same thing. They're just God touched. They just said, hey, you're better than the rest of these people. And then you got lottery winners, right? Like, yeah, we've all tried to start businesses and some work and some don't, and some are grind and some aren't. And then you hear a story about a guy that, he started this and made $100 million, right? Well, that's a lottery winner. But the reality for 99.999% of us is you're not God touched and you didn't win the lottery. So those stories are more prevalent though, and we seem to think that's the pathway to success and that's the pathway to winning, is I'm going to follow what those guys did. Well, that's a whole different animal, right? That's that 0.00001% that won the lottery for their money, or they're just Usain Bolt. Like Usain Bolt could sit on the couch for the next year and just eat pizza pockets all day and get up and win the world championships if he wanted to. It's just God touched.
Yeah.
So once I recognized that, I think that's helped me. And to Dan's point, I agree. I think that and that's something that I struggle with my kids too, is the social media stuff. Like I never see them get off social media and go, man, I feel great, right? Man, I feel great because I saw what every one of my friends did this weekend that was 10 times more fun than what I did. Or I saw all the new stuff that this guy did in business, all the new cars and Bentleys he's buying because he's posting them, and the private jet flights. Like that doesn't make me feel good, nor does it really motivate me, because I understand what it is now. It's a little bit of a false idol that we're throwing out there. And is in respect to what pond do you live in? I think the biggest singular variable that we're talking about there is the ability to say, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to put myself out there. But number one is I'm going to cast my ego aside. If you are living a life of ego, you will never leave the pond where you're the biggest fish. You will never do that, because you never want the opportunity to show up somewhere and not be the number one guy in the room, right? And when I was able to cast that aside and say, hey, to hell with the ego, because the ego doesn't serve anything for me, right? But learning does, and mentoring does. And if I can just suck it up and say, hey, Dan, you have much more leadership experience than I do. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hang on every word. I'm going to follow that. Well, that Dan is a step above me in leadership. So I'm in constant pursuit to try and chase him, right? But my ego has to be out of the way for me to allow me to do that. Whereas I could go to some other guys that I know, and they put me on this pedestal. Well, I don't want to be in that room anymore, because I'm never going to grow. Now it satisfies my ego, but it doesn't satisfy my growth. Does that make sense? 100%. So yeah, we have the big picture bubble, right? Like you have your sum total, your aggregate of who you are, but you have your own micro bubbles of, not only your spirituality and your work acumen and your family and your husbandry, but are you growing your pursuit of happiness bubble too, right? With everything that's going on in mental health the way that it is today, are you actively taking time to pursue happiness? And where does that come from? And if you're not, that's a big misstep. You don't have to be miserable when you're doing extra effort. It's not who can just endure the most amount of pain and who can make it the hardest on themselves and walk to school both ways uphill in the snow. It's about understanding where you are and placing yourself right and allocating your priorities and your time. And that's why I think that I'm a huge proponent. I do a lot of coaching for people, but I get coached by a lot of people, right? And hey, Marcus, if I ever hit the end where I've been coached on everything and I'm perfect, I'll let you know. But as it stands right now, I got a long way to go.
This wraps up our episode for this week. So far, I've got incredible lessons from both Dan and Derek in regards to their perseverance in life. A couple of the big takeaways I've got so far is this idea of pursuit of excellence. Notice with both of them that they identified early on in their life that they wanted to pursue excellence regardless of the number of times they were told no, the number of times they failed, but they identified those micro successes along the way that they really leaned on as encouragement to keep moving forward. The other thing I really love is their conversation around being vulnerable, really focusing on giving back and contributing to the people they're surrounding themselves with, and identifying, are you in the right pond? It's those little extra efforts that are what's going to take you from where you're currently at to the next level. Now, don't forget to join us next week as we continue the conversation with Dan and Derek, as they start talking to us about how they approached life after the SEAL teams and the NFL and what that looks like. And I will tell you, the conversation is incredible, and what they achieved before in the NFL and in the teams is only a fraction of what these guys have done with their life. So I'm really excited to have you join us next week. We'll see you there. Don't forget, go live life on your terms.